Have you heard the story of the emperor's new clothes? For those who haven't, it tells the story of a vain emperor who was tricked by two con men into believing that they'd sewn for him a set of clothes that is so light that you couldn't feel it, and that only a fool cannot see it. Naturally, the emperor pretended that he could see the robes, because he didn't want to be thought a fool. As word spread throughout the kingdom of the emperor's new robes and of their special qualities, people far and wide would pretend that they too could see the imaginary robes. This, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, is today's art community. For who else could deem a blank canvas museum-worthy? Today, I will persuade you that our museums need to be more selective of the pieces that they have on display because of the profound effects it has on the standards we set for art. Now, you might be wondering, why should I care what museums put on display? Well, the answer is that art throughout history tells us a lot of information about that time period. It shows the prominent ideas of the society it came from. Take the Renaissance, for example. It shows us people fascinated with religion, philosophy, and poetry. The artists at that time prided themselves on creating works that not only showed their masterful artistic abilities, but that had the viewer intrigued by the meaning and depth of the piece, or interested by the story it told. Now just imagine the people of the distant future and how they'll judge us based on some of the pieces we allow in museums these days. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. A phrase coined by Margaret Wolfe Humphrey in 1878 is oftentimes used to describe pieces either lacking in visual stimulation or an apparent artistic intention. A few years back, I was in a museum in Ontario, and I stumbled upon an abstract art exhibit. To the right of the room appeared to be a stack of paint cans, and to the left what looked like the remains of a torn-up rug. Both had a small group of people standing around, either commenting on the artist's interesting use of material or the provocative message, when suddenly a janitor walks in with a broom and swept away the carpet shavings. Something is obviously wrong when people cannot tell the difference between garbage and art. Now, museums must impose a set of standards for each kind of art, because it'd be impossible to judge all forms by the same set of standards. You can never compare a Picasso to a Da Vinci. Now, some may say that there's some forms of art that just can't be judged or put on a scale, that requires the viewer themselves to see within the piece the true inner meaning. That sounds an awful lot like what the two con men said to the king about his new set of robes. Now, one artist even said that the experience usually progresses through boredom, that the viewer may find the piece dull, then impossibly dull, and then breaks out onto another side of the boredom into what can only be called contemplation or aesthetic enjoyment, and that from there the piece becomes more interesting. Well, the piece described was a pure black painting by Ad Reinhardt. Museums should be considered like the Olympics of the art world, where only the best in their meaning should be allowed the honor of being on display. Not just anyone should be allowed that honor, especially if they do not meet the standards set by the museum. Monument 6, for instance, by Barrett Newman, is no more than a blue painting with a turquoise line down the middle. Now, I'm not saying that only classical works are museum-worthy, because there's a lot of beautiful contemporary art pieces. I, for one, had the chance to see some of the amazing works by Julie, which explores the potential of blown glass, making works full of color, organic form, and layering. But regardless of who the artist is, all works on display should be the best of the best. Now, because of museums' almost complete lack of standards, we're led to believe that everything in museums is good art. That leaves the future for art to be worryingly unstable. One artist, Piero Manzoni, simply canned his excrement, labeled it, and called it art. That sold for $230,000, a can of poop. Another artist, Justin Gignac, simply takes garbage off the streets, puts them in plastic cubes, and sells each one for $100. Now, the only reason why creations such as these are viewed as acceptable is because people can no longer tell what is and is not art. To pave a path to a world where we can tell the difference between good and bad art, we need museums to set standards for what they put on display, to set an example for what's acceptable. Don't be the mindless peasant ogling at the emperor's imaginary robes. Respectfully speak your mind, and the rest will follow suit. Thank you.